When we hear about the most reliable rocket company, the first name that comes to mind is SpaceX, without a doubt. Over the past 20 years, the company has built its reputation by breaking numerous records and playing a leading role in many important national projects. Yet, despite those incredible achievements, some NASA officials remain skeptical of SpaceX's capabilities, while they tend to overlook the obvious problems of other legacy companies, such as Boeing. This raises a big question of how NASA executes its safety culture. Find out everything in today's episode. It seems that NASA is becoming more and more concerned about safety after a series of issues with its Orion heat shield, the Boeing Starliner spacecraft, and even a recent series of anomalies by SpaceX. This prompted NASA's Aerospace Safety Advisory Panel at the October 31st meeting to call on SpaceX to maintain focus on Dragon safety as the company increases its pace of missions. Kent Rominger, a former astronaut who serves on the committee, went through a list of recent issues with SpaceX's Falcon 9 rocket and Dragon spacecraft, which served as a reminder to remain vigilant as the company increases its pace of missions. The mentioned issues include the July Falcon 9 launch failure, when the second stage failed to perform a second burn, grounding the rocket for about 2 weeks. Another upper stage engine anomaly on the Falcon 9 launch of the Crew 9 mission on September 28th during a deorbit burn also grounded the vehicle, with the exception of one mission, for 2 weeks. Falcon 9 launches were also briefly halted in August, when a Falcon 9 booster was lost attempting a drone ship landing. When you look at these recent incidents over the last handful of weeks, it does lead one to say that it's apparent that operating safely requires significant attention to detail as hardware ages and the pace of operations increases, he concluded. Both NASA and SpaceX need to maintain focus on safe Crew Dragon operations and not take any normal operations for granted. Additionally, his discussion addressed observations with Crew Dragon parachutes on the Crew 8 splashdown on October 25th. Such as the lagging behavior where one of 4 main parachutes opened somewhat slower than the other 3, which he noted is within the family of expected performance for the system. Along with concerns, Rominger also endorsed moving Dragon splashdowns from off the Florida coast to near the California coast to better control the re-entry of the Dragon's trunk section, pieces of which have survived re-entry on past missions. For some people, ASAP's argument has a point. First and foremost, they did not invent anything. They were not critical of anything, but pointing out a true warning: keep all crew flights safe. This is not something superfluous. It keeps everybody's attention on the most important issue of these flights: safety. ASAP was created by Congress following the 1967 tragedy that killed the 3-person crew of the first Apollo mission: Virgil Gus Grissom, Ed White, and Roger Chaffee. It is the only NASA advisory panel that reports both to the NASA administrator and Congress. Therefore, when a launch company suddenly has a burst of otherwise uncorrelated anomalies, it would not be unfathomable if ASAP's antennae gets twitched. Furthermore, SpaceX is well known for its bold projects beyond any company else, so the company really needs Cerberus watching over its moves, at least compared to ASAP's primary mission, which is to issue a hand-wringing press release every 6 months. This is one of the milder ones. On the other hand, some suppose that NASA's panel biases SpaceX. At the meeting, the panel also discussed the Starliner crewed test flight, which ended with NASA deciding to leave astronauts Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams on the International Space Station and bring back the spacecraft uncrewed. However, they provided no new technical insights into Starliner's thruster problems and helium leaks. Instead, they congratulated NASA and Boeing teams for working tirelessly to do testing and obtain the data necessary for that decision-making. In their own words, this reflects a healthy safety culture. But is it actually true? Let's take a look at reality. Frankly, SpaceX is always incredibly safe when dealing with crew issues. The anomaly ratios of SpaceX rockets' launches, based on the number of consecutive launches, are likely lower than those of any other launch platform. As of the 15th of October, 2024, rockets from the Falcon 9 family have been launched 398 times, leading the world in the number of launches whereas the number of failures counted on the fingers of one hand. The company's vehicles such as Dragon or Falcon are trusted to undertake important national missions. SpaceX's Crew Dragon, which is considered to be the safest and most cost-effective spacecraft ever used by NASA, takes the primal role in shuttling NASA's astronauts to ISS annually. It is also the only U.S. spacecraft capable of doing so, since NASA's space shuttles were retired. Think about Dragon's companion, Boeing Starliner, under NASA's Commercial Crew Program. A decade has passed without any operational missions, despite the vehicle initially costing NASA twice as much as SpaceX. Look at the anomalies on Boeing's spacecraft, consistently, over multiple launches. All of them are serious incidents from software errors, issues with the parachute harness, and flammable tape on wiring, to propulsive system incidents. Worse, NASA okayed that troubled spacecraft for manned flight anyway, and endangered the lives of 2 people. Well, at this point, it doesn't seem like a really healthy safety culture. After years of development setbacks, weeks of delays because of a spacecraft helium leak, and a final 4-day slip caused by a problem with a ground computer, Boeing's CST-100 Starliner commercial crew spacecraft on the 5th of June reached orbit with NASA astronauts Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams on board. It can be said how happy the trio of NASA, Boeing, and ULA felt by then. There was an interesting tidbit spread on X that, after a joke during the press conference, ULA's CEO got his tie cut after his first people launch, a tradition usually after a flight director's first launch. However, that would be the last time there were many smiles at a briefing about Starliner. The next day, Starliner docked with the station, but not before experiencing more helium leaks and problems with several of its thrusters. What initially appeared to be a minor issue evolved, over the next 3 months, into NASA's biggest human spaceflight safety crisis since the Shuttle Columbia accident more than 2 decades ago. Ironically, both NASA and Boeing tried to downplay all of those problems and continuously confirmed that the spacecraft was safe enough to take the crew home, the astronauts, and that the vehicle wasn't stuck on the ISS. Until the truth was increasingly more obvious than ever that Starliner looked like space debris. Rather than a competent vehicle, the national agency finally acknowledged the truth. Then, on September 7th, Boeing's Starliner spacecraft landed safely on Earth in White Sands, New Mexico, ending its return journey with some new propulsion issues. This was indeed a hollow victory because the final and most important testing could not be fully accomplished. Butch and Suni are now still on ISS, waiting for the rescue of Dragon Crew 9 the next February. It should have been the end of the problematic Starliner program, but NASA remains determined to give it another chance to achieve system certification. However, the incompetence of the Boeing spacecraft is off the table. The heavy financial losses in this program forced Boeing to make the decision to sell it. Of course, this is not the first time NASA's safety culture has been in hot water. NASA's safety culture was sharply criticized after the 1986 Space Shuttle Challenger and 2003 Space Shuttle Columbia tragedies, and the agency has made many changes since. The Challenger explosion resulted from a failure to heed engineers' warnings about the O-rings and cold temperatures. Investigations revealed that NASA's culture discouraged dissent and prioritized schedule adherence over safety concerns, leading to a tragic loss of life. Similarly, the Columbia disaster was attributed not only to technical failures, but also to a culture that undervalued safety. The investigation found that NASA's internal communication systems failed to adequately address safety issues raised by engineers, reflecting a systemic problem in risk management. In response to these tragedies, NASA initiated a comprehensive review and transformation of its safety culture. In 2009, NASA established a safety culture program encouraging open communication regarding safety issues and fostering an environment where employees feel safe reporting concerns without fear of repercussions. It includes regular safety culture surveys that allow employees to anonymously share their thoughts on safety practices within the agency. NASA's safety culture model is built around 5 essential factors: engaged, flexible, learning, reporting, and just. This framework aims to create an atmosphere where safety is prioritized across all levels of the organization. In addition, NASA has implemented various training programs aimed at reinforcing its commitment to safety. These include courses on safety culture for all employees and specific training for supervisors to ensure they foster a supportive environment. Clearly, the national agency knows what went wrong with them and how to fix it. But in the case of Boeing Starliner, there may be something lurking that prevents them from taking their principles seriously. In 2018, Boeing CEO Dennis Muilenburg gave an extremely arrogant challenge, saying that Boeing would beat SpaceX to send the first humans to Mars. Luckily, he was fired just a year later before realizing how silly his words were. At present, SpaceX has embarrassed Boeing more than ever when its Dragon spacecraft has become NASA's most reliable vehicle ever to shuttle astronauts to and from the ISS. They are even going to clean the mess caused by Calypso's first crew test flight in June by rescuing 2 stranded NASA astronauts, who the Starliner wasn't supposed to bring back. By contrast, the Boeing Calypso Starliner spacecraft looked like scrap metal. Not only was it unsuccessful, but it was hemorrhaging cash at such a rapid rate that the company decided to sell it. Boeing's financial health is more fragile than ever, as total losses on Starliner are towards $1.85 billion, even though Starliner is a relatively small portion of Boeing's overall business. This contributes to the second worst quarterly result in its history, with a $6 billion loss between July and September. To be honest, the decision to sell Calypso was on the table before Kelly Ortberg took over as CEO in August. At that point, Boeing held discussions with Blue Origin about taking over some of the NASA programs. Of course, such discussions are still at an early stage and may not result in a deal. However, we can totally believe that BO is truly a potential buyer. The company has a couple of potential lines of business that could be a good match for what Boeing is currently doing in space. Boeing is already one of the partners backing Orbital Reef, a commercial space station project led by Blue Origin. The plan calls for Starliner, accompanied by Sierra Space's Dream Chaser space plane, to transport crew and cargo to and from Orbital Reef. If Blue takes over the Starliner program, it will save a significant amount of money instead of hiring outsourcing. Last year, the company also began a collaboration with NASA to explore the development of new capabilities for crew transportation to and from low Earth orbit. Not sure if this is referring to New Shepard, if it is talking about New Glenn, or if this means BO is working on getting Dream Chaser and Starliner compatible with New Glenn. Interesting stuff regardless. Furthermore, some speculate that the reason Jeff buys Starliner is to buy the contracts for 6 operational missions to the ISS under NASA's Commercial Crew program. It has a point because the ISS retirement is very likely to be pushed back beyond 2030. NASA has said more than once this year that 2030 is no longer special and that there is no deadline for deorbiting the ISS. It means Starliner will have more chances to complete the contract and get the full $4.2 billion. However, there are still some challenges here. Starliner is basically an incompetent spacecraft. It is still alive because of the lobby it has in politics. Whoever buys it will not have support from anyone and will have to fight like a lone wolf. This is a big deal, especially when its rival, SpaceX Dragon, has been dominating the market. Therefore, to enter the race, BO or Boeing would have to completely resolve the technical troubles on the vehicle in advance, or it will just be a major financial albatross around their proverbial neck. Talking about this matter, some opinions raise the positive view that Starliner is a distressed asset. However, 95% of the vehicle is good. It's just some issues with the thrusters. A lot of the technology is fundamentally sound, given that Starliner seems to have working. For the complex technological components like the environmental control life support system and pressure vessel, they could import and build a new vehicle around that core. So how about you? Do you think Blue Origin buying Starliner is a good choice? Let me know in the comments. Putting Starliner for sale is an inauspicious end to Boeing's space business. But it fits perfectly with the principle of Boeing's latest CEO, which is doing less and doing better. We're better off doing less and doing it better than doing more and not doing it well, Ortberg said. Clearly, our core of commercial airplanes and defense systems are going to stay with the Boeing company for the long run, but there's probably some things on the fringe there that we can be more efficient with, or that just distract us from our main goal here. So, a pretty loaded statement there is that Ortberg wants to take Boeing back to its core sector by making it clear that Boeing is an airplane company. This wise step sets him apart from the previous Wall Street-style managers of Boeing, who can do anything to save every penny. SpaceX CEO Elon Musk also praised Kelly Ortberg for this, which has since raised hopes of reviving the once greatest American company. The new Boeing CEO spends time in the factory and understands engineering, which are big improvements. Hopefully, he turns around a once great company. Frankly, Elon has often pointed out the root cause of Boeing's collapse. In June, he posted a tweet as quoted, "The CEO of an aircraft company should know how to design aircraft, not spreadsheets." On May 7th, after Boeing's first crewed launch attempt was canceled, Elon chided Boeing on X for employing too many non-technical managers. Also, in 2022, Musk opined about non-technical managers. "I strongly believe that all managers in a technical area must be technically excellent. Managers in software must write great software, or it's like being a cavalry captain who can't ride a horse." Back at Blue Origin, buying Starliner isn't the only Boeing deal the company has its eye on. In February, there was a rumor that Jeff Bezos' space company was likely a buyer for United Launch Alliance, a joint venture between Boeing and Lockheed Martin. Everything started in 2023 when ULA announced that it was for sale. In December 2023, it was announced that Jeff Bezos was looking at purchasing the company to merge it with Blue Origin. In early 2024, some sources said that Blue Origin was nearing the purchase of ULA. During that time, a handful of senior officials at ULA are seeking new jobs. In February, Jeff Bezos sold shares worth roughly $8.5 billion after the stock rallied 80% in 2023. According to speculation in the launch industry, ULA may be sold for $2 to $3 billion and could be as high as $4 billion. So it's safe to say that Jeff can totally purchase ULA. After stepping down as chief executive of Amazon in summer 2021, Jeff Bezos is now all in on Blue Origin. Although he essentially has no technical background to successfully run a rocket company, he is a businessman, a billionaire, and very smart at taking advantage of disadvantages. ULA offers great value to Blue Origin. According to the payload, ULA's existing contract backlog provides immediate market penetration and revenue. ULA's launch backlog, possibly over $7 billion, far exceeds what Blue will pay for the acquisition. Additionally, ULA and its chief Tory Bruno are not ordinary. To be fair, in the past 2 decades, not a single ULA Atlas rocket has failed. That contrasts with 2 failures suffered by the Falcon 9 favored by SpaceX, one in 2015 and one last September. That gives ULA bragging rights when it comes to reliability. ULA's chief executive, Tory Bruno, is not a dumb. Since taking over ULA in 2014, he has slashed employee headcount and taken other steps to control costs, such as closing infrequently used launch pads. He has demonstrated the ability to run a launch company with an excellent record of success and manage the development of a large new launch vehicle, the Vulcan rocket. His mission was clear: make it competitive with SpaceX. His engineering background could complement Blue Origin's newly appointed CEO Dave Limp, a former Amazon executive who has strong management experience. In conclusion, buying ULA and even Starliner would enhance Blue Origin in the competitive market in the race against Elon Musk's SpaceX. Have you ever wondered why the California Coastal Commission could blatantly cite the political reason for rejecting SpaceX's plan to launch more rockets off the Central California coast without fear? In my opinion, one of the reasons is that they are clearly aware of Vandenberg Space Base's role in SpaceX's rocket launch plans. It's not coincidental that Vandenberg offers an ideal location for launches, because only this location can launch satellites to a polar orbit without launching over population centers, the eastern seaboard, or foreign countries, Cuba and South America. Of course, SpaceX can do this from Cape Canaveral, but by then, launches tend to require much more booster energy. In contrast, it is much easier to do from Vandenberg. In addition, the company also has lucrative contracts with the Space Force to launch the military missions at that place. For example, The Space Force had sought to increase the number of launches of SpaceX's flagship Falcon 9 rocket from 36 to 50 per year out of California. By exploiting these loopholes, California bureaucrats can force their enemies to change to their liking. However, SpaceX CEO Elon Musk is not willing to give in. In mid-October, he sued the California Commission in federal court, accusing panel members of political bias in blocking the space venture company. So far, it's unclear how everything will end. But I believe that this is only Musk's short-term step because no one knows exactly what the California Commission will do next. For that reason, it's important to have a contingency plan in place, meaning SpaceX can come up with adding Florida, the long-standing capital of U.S. rocket launches, to the list of ideal launch sites. Maybe you don't know that Elon Musk has had a strong rapport with the head of the state of Florida, Governor Ron DeSantis, in recent years, particularly as DeSantis announced his presidential candidacy in a special congressional election held June 14, 2022, in Texas. Elon Musk was asked on X if he'd picked a horse for president in 2024. DeSantis, Musk responded. In November of the same year, Musk tweeted that he hoped the next president would be someone sensible and centrist. Asked if he would support DeSantis, and he replied that he would. Additionally, Musk's endorsement is also shown in the financial aspect. In the aftermath of Hurricane Ian, Musk's company, SpaceX, provided 120 Starlink satellites to help restore internet service in affected areas of southwest Florida. DeSantis publicly acknowledged this partnership during a press conference, highlighting their collaborative efforts in disaster relief.
We're working with Elon Musk, and he's got the Starlink satellite, so he's...
Palm Beach County-based political analyst Brian Crowley, who covered Florida and national politics for more than 3 decades, shared his own opinion about this matter. There are 2 ways of looking at this relationship. One is that it's a purely political relationship, and the other is that it's a business relationship. Frankly, it might be a combination of both. Thanks to these positive moves of Elon Musk, Governor Ron DeSantis holds SpaceX and Musk in high regard, consistently creating favorable conditions for the company's growth in Florida, even introducing legislation to further boost SpaceX's strength in the state. The Florida legislature, under DeSantis's leadership, passed a bill that protects private spaceflight companies like SpaceX from lawsuits related to crew injuries or fatalities during flights. This legislative move is seen as a supportive gesture towards Musk's ventures in the state. On Musk's side, he has spoken positively about Florida's business climate. SpaceX has a sizable workforce on the Space Coast, with rocket manufacturing and launching facilities in Cocoa and Cape Canaveral. In 2021, he said he'd spoken to DeSantis about alleviating traffic around Miami through the use of tunnels built by his Boeing company. The local government's support has turned Florida into a place where top aerospace companies find everything they need to turn their cutting-edge ideas into reality. In Florida, aerospace companies have a footing in the new space economy, or any aerospace market, with direct access to established infrastructure, a skilled workforce, and an environment geared for innovation. Only Florida offers an unmatched experience, exclusive financial tools, and a prime location over other regions. Geographically, while launching from Florida tends to require much more booster energy, the place still stands out in terms of other significant advantages. Located along the east coast of the United States, the launch site in Florida, Cape Canaveral Air Force Station is a military base, utilized by both the Navy and Air Force for defense and strategic operations. It has played a key role in the development of the space program and missile testing in the United States. When this area was being looked at as a potential site, the fact that there was already an infrastructure in place, roads specifically, made Cape Canaveral an easy choice to move the launch program to. Another reason why Cape Canaveral was appealing was the close proximity to the equator, as it lies 28 degrees latitude above. This is very important. As the Earth rotates on its axis, it creates positive kinetic energy. The closer to the equator, the greater the kinetic energy is, which means a rocket launching from Cape Canaveral has to use 0.3% less energy. From a fuel efficiency and expense perspective, with the amount of energy needed to launch an object, that 0.3% savings goes a long way. Cape Canaveral was also very close to the Atlantic Ocean. Since the Earth rotates eastward, Not only would the object being launched get a nice boost from the Earth's spin, but the object would also have the advantage of flying over the ocean, minimizing the risk of having any debris dropping or exploding near people. Rockets can be safely launched to the east over the open waters of the Atlantic Ocean. If there is an issue with the rocket after liftoff, spaceflight operators can safely put it down in the Atlantic Ocean without endangering the public. In fact, SpaceX has taken advantage of this by sending a floating platform out in the Atlantic Ocean, where the first stage of its Falcon 9 rockets can land after sending its payload into space. Anyway, Musk seems determined to launch the rocket from California despite political hurdles. This led to the $730 million contract between the U.S. Space Force and SpaceX being awarded shortly after Elon filed the lawsuit against the California Commission. The contract includes at least 9 national security missions from California's Vandenberg Space Force Base. Musk's determination also received big support from powerful officials. First and foremost, California Governor Gavin Newsom, who has had a long-standing feud with Elon Musk in the past, but recently sided with Elon Musk, saying, "I'm with Elon." Elon Musk and SpaceX get even more support from Washington. Congressman Vince Fong wrote his own letter to the California Coastal Commission, CCC. "I have grave concerns over their decision," with commissioners citing personal animus to justify what should have been a non-political decision. "As a member of Congress, I believe that government decisions should be made in a fair and impartial manner, without regard to political views. In all my years in public service, I have never heard of a commission discussing politics as the basis for official action. This seems to be an egregious use of political discrimination to punish a specific company." California Coastal Commission continues to face growing backlash, as both Dana, a Capitol staffer, and aerospace consultant Miles Green highlighted their perspective. "I can't say who, but I do know of others here in Sacramento who will be writing to the CC as well once elections are done with," Dana said. "I know Newsom did it, but many don't want to be seen supporting Musk publicly, even if it is just for SpaceX launches, until after the election. It's why you haven't seen other Democrats go after the CCC decision yet, and so many Republicans who have. And remember here, it's because why some of the commissioners said no to the launches. They made it personal. You cannot make decisions on a personal level. That's why lawyers and lawmakers recuse themselves from things they have a personal stake in, or are related to somebody there, or something like that." Aerospace consultant Miles Green added, "With the lawsuit, SpaceX can bring this back around. And all they have to show is that the SpaceX launches have military value. Rejections under that sort of basis are common enough, so you just bolster your next application or request. That decision making it personal was highly unusual, though. You can't get personal on decisions like that, and they did." These arguments were used against the statements of 2 California commissioners about Elon. Elon Musk is hopping about the country, spewing and tweeting political falsehoods and attacking FEMA, while claiming his desire to help the hurricane victims with free Starlink access to the internet, said Commissioner Gretchen Newsom, who is not related to Governor Gavin Newsom. It appears that rather than prioritizing the welfare of SpaceX employees and the environment, the focus has been on profit maximization. Without the SpaceX Dragon spacecraft, NASA astronauts would still have to learn Russian to get to the International Space Station, ISS. The retirement of NASA's Space Shuttle in 2011 marked a significant transition for the agency, leading to a period of reliance on Russia's Soyuz spacecraft. This dependency lasted nearly a decade and posed challenges to U.S. human spaceflight capabilities. However, the tide has turned since the historic event on May 30, 2020, with the launch of the SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket and Dragon crew capsule from Florida's Kennedy Space Center to ISS. This marked the first time since 2011 that humans had blasted off into orbit from U.S. soil. Clearly, the introduction of SpaceX's Crew Dragon spacecraft has revitalized America's human spaceflight program, ushering in a new era of domestic space exploration. So far, the SpaceX Dragon spacecraft made 43 visits to the ISS since 2019, carrying both crew and cargo for NASA. The agency recently even hired SpaceX to rescue 2 Americans stuck at the space station after Starliner's problems forced the agency to order the vehicle to return to Earth empty. Furthermore, the flagship leaves the world in awe by conducting 2 all-civilian missions to orbit, Inspiration 4 in September 2021 and Polaris Dawn in September 2024. The success of these missions represents SpaceX's giant leap towards commercializing spaceflight. Along with high reliability, Dragon stands out for its cost-effectiveness. The cost per seat on its crew version is much cheaper than its competitors, with around $55 million, while that of Boeing's Starliner and Russia's Soyuz are respectively $90 and $86 million. Moreover, on Dragon, cost is inversely proportional to modernity. As you can see, the interior of the spacecraft is indeed designed with a modern aesthetic and incorporates advanced technologies that enhance both functionality and comfort for astronauts. Despite being cool, SpaceX decided to end production of its flagship crew capsule as the company heaps resources on its next-generation spaceship program. Elon Musk talked about it in his recent tweet, "Dragon is awesome as a capsule architecture, but we need to move beyond that to rapidly reusable propulsive landers." The rapidly reusable propulsive lander that he mentioned is the fully reusable super heavy lift launch vehicle, Starship. Compared to other landing methods, propulsive landing technology offers several advantages to spacecraft. It allows for greater accuracy in targeting specific landing sites. By using onboard engines to control descent, spacecraft can adjust their trajectory in real time, ensuring they land exactly where intended, which is especially beneficial for missions requiring precise landings on planetary surfaces. It also can slow their approach speed significantly, resulting in softer landings. This capability minimizes the forces experienced upon touchdown, which is crucial for protecting sensitive equipment and cargo on board. Spacecraft designed for propulsive landings can be reused multiple times, significantly reducing the cost of access to space. A typical example is the case of Falcon 9's rocket, given that its booster can be reused over 10 times with minimal maintenance between flights. Talking about landing location. Normally, Dragon using parachutes and splashdown requires vast open areas or bodies of water. Propulsive landing enables spacecraft to land in a variety of environments, including rugged terrains or urban areas. This offers flexibility in conducting various missions, including orbital and suborbital missions. Of course, Dragon could land propulsively, but that's only a backup option to the parachutes and splashdown. You can get it certified to do so, but it makes no sense given Starship, Space's bold project. The company's ambition is to develop the largest and most advanced vehicle that will replace its current fleet of Falcon rockets and Dragon spacecraft. It explains why Elon ended production of Dragon to heaps of resources on the giant vehicle. The crew spacecraft is primarily used for the national scientific missions rather than the civilian counterparts, so it is designed to carry from 2 to 4 people and over 3 tons to the ISS. Crew Dragon was specifically designed for low Earth orbit, and in order to send it to the moon, would require a ton of modifications. Meanwhile, SpaceX has plans to establish a permanent human presence on Mars, and it is estimated to cost a lot of money. According to Musk, recent U.S. Mars missions have cost approximately $1 billion per ton of useful payload delivered to the Martian surface. This high cost, which has been increasing over time, presents a significant barrier to establishing a self-sustaining city on Mars. Musk estimates that building such a city would require at least 1 million tons of equipment, translating to an astronomical cost of over $1,000 trillion, far exceeding the current U.S. GDP of $29 trillion. However, Musk believes that a 1,000-fold improvement in rocket technology could be the key to making Mars colonization financially viable. With such advancements, he projects that the cost could be reduced to around $1 trillion, which could be spread over 40 or more years, resulting in an annual expenditure of less than $25 billion. He points to SpaceX's Starship as a system designed to achieve this ambitious goal of a 1,000-fold improvement over existing rocket technologies. The recent successful test flight of Starship, which included a booster catch and precise ocean landing of the upper stage, has bolstered Musk's confidence in the system's potential. He stated, "I am now convinced that it can work," referring to Starship's ability to revolutionize space travel and make Mars colonization a reality. Rapid development with Starship makes the most sense, because to carry Dragon to orbit, you really need a separate rocket, Falcon 9, which directly makes more work and costs more expenditure. Unlike Starship, Falcon 9 isn't fully reusable. and has multiple bottlenecks to scale up even more launches per year. As we know, the Falcon 9's first stage is designed for reuse, but the second stage is not. This means that each launch still requires a new second stage, which increases costs and complicates the overall reusability model. The reliance on a single-use second stage limits the full economic benefits of reusability that SpaceX aims to achieve. Additionally, to facilitate the recovery of the first stage, additional propellant and landing gear must be carried, which results in approximately a 30% reduction in maximum payload capacity compared to an expendable Falcon 9. This trade-off can deter customers who require maximum payload efficiency for their missions. Starship, by contrast, has both stages that are recovered after each launch. Elon Musk announced that the Super Heavy rocket that returned safely after launch can be relaunched within an hour, adapting to Starship's high launch cadence. Instead of landing gear, Starship is caught by a GAINT advanced structure, namely Mechazilla. This helps to reduce the dead mass on the vehicle, increasing its payload capacity. For sure, Dragon is great, but Starship is the future. Fully and rapidly reusable orbital spacecraft are essential for establishing a permanent presence on Mars. The move from familiar vehicles to more technologically challenging vehicles reflects Musk's vision and determination. Okay, now let's talk about another interesting tidbit about Dragon cargo. On Monday night, November 4th, SpaceX launched the robotic Dragon aboard a Falcon 9 rocket from NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida for a ride to the ISS. It's the 31st commercial resupply mission for SpaceX on behalf of NASA and is therefore known as CRS-31. As usual, it is delivering several tons of supplies and scientific experiments. But one difference is that for the first time, the Dragon spacecraft will be used to reboost the ISS by firing the aft Draco engines for roughly 12 minutes. The primary purpose of the test is to collect data SpaceX needs to develop the U.S. deorbit vehicle NASA will use to send the ISS into the ocean at the end of its lifetime. The ISS partners were planning to use Russian Progress cargo spacecraft to deorbit the ISS. But after Russia's invasion of Ukraine, NASA decided an alternative was necessary. The agency selected SpaceX to build it based on the Dragon design. Also, the ISS needs to be periodically reboosted to compensate for atmospheric drag and maintain the correct altitude. Throughout the ISS's lifetime, Progress cargo spacecraft, or thrusters, have performed this task on Russia's Zvezda module. In 2018, Northrop Grumman did a reboost test using Cygnus, but it was not until 2022, as Russia was threatening to invade Ukraine and questions arose about Russia's commitment to the ISS, that NASA started using it operationally. Cygnus's reboost capabilities are quite limited compared to Progress and Zvezda, however, and Russia continues to conduct the vast majority of reboost operations. Cargo Dragon's capabilities also are limited, but Bill Spetch, NASA ISS Operations Integration Manager, said that this is an important flight test objective for this mission, as we continue to increase the capabilities of all the vehicles on ISS. It's hard to believe that one day we'll all have another life on other planets. As we continue to explore the universe and develop new technologies, the possibility of extraterrestrial colonization becomes more tangible. From reusable rockets to advanced touchscreen interfaces, companies like SpaceX are helping chart a new course for our involvement with space travel. This innovation even includes something as overlooked, yet incredibly vital, as spacesuits. To date, the company has developed two basic types of spacesuits for space exploration: the extravehicular activities, EVA spacesuit, and the intravehicular activity, IVA spacesuit. While the EVA suit is used for a spacewalk, the IVA suit is dedicated to use inside the vehicle during launch and landing, as well as during rendezvous and docking procedures. Its purpose is to provide astronauts with a bit more mobility inside the spacecraft, as well as to provide them with some protection in the event of an accident, such as a depressurization of the spacecraft. SpaceX began developing the IVA suit, known as Starman, in February 2015. Unlike the traditional NASA suits, each of the Crew Dragon suits is tailored to each astronaut, using a design created by a Hollywood costume designer. Starman's suit is a pleasant one-piece white style that is considerably slimmer than NASA's bulky orange pumpkin flight suit, also known as the Advanced Crew Escape Suit. The suit's thinness is due to the use of new lightweight materials that give greater protection in a lighter weight, more flexible design. These suits are not just uniforms. They are high-tech components that integrate with the vessel's systems. As such, they are made of fire-resistant Kevlar and Nomex. A single connection point on the leg of the astronaut provides vital connections for both air and power. Even the gloves are advanced technology designed to work with touchscreen controls used by SpaceX. So far, the Starman suit has still been serving for SpaceX's Crew Dragon missions to the ISS, reflecting its high safety and reliability. On Halloween, Jared Isaacman revealed an exciting new piece of information about SpaceX's suit. SpaceX is all about reusability, not just the rockets and spacesuits, but even the underwear called comfort garments. Can't tell you how many astronauts I have shared comfort garments with at this point. Isaacman's sharing manifests that SpaceX's reusability is truly reaching a level we never imagined. It's unbelievable that for SpaceX, a sensitive personal item like underwear can be reused and shared with others. This is totally different from the experiences that a Canadian retired astronaut, Chris Hadfield, underwent. In an interview with Conan on TBS 10 years ago, he humorously shared that there's no laundromat in space, so the International Space Station's residents fling laundry into space to burn up in re-entry.
We just wear our clothes till they wear out, and then you throw them in the trash, and the trash is like a little unmanned resupply ship. And when it gets full of trash, then we close the hatch, and it undocks and backs away and falls down into the atmosphere. So your dirty laundry actually gets incinerated in the atmosphere.
This is obviously a big matter. A crew of 6 astronauts generates approximately 409 kilograms of clothing waste annually. This includes items like workout clothes, which are changed frequently due to sweat accumulation. Before the dirty laundry can be ejected into space, it has a tendency to pile up. According to NASA, all of these dirty garments can cause storage and weight problems. And lint from cotton fibers can clog filters. Then there's the smell. Therefore, SpaceX's invention regarding reused underwear has made a big revolution in spaceflight because it can solve a painful problem: space debris. From there, they could go further by applying that technology to extend the life of astronauts' clothes aboard the ISS even longer. Following the IVA suit, SpaceX has since evolved its design into the EVA suit. It was first revealed on May 4th and was introduced as designed for the Polaris Dawn mission, a private crewed spaceflight operated by SpaceX on behalf of Shift 4 CEO Jared Isaacman. The mission witnessed the first commercial spacewalk using this brand new spacesuit, which took place on Thursday, September 12th. The test went very well, and post-flight data analysis is still underway. According to SpaceX, the new EVA astronaut suits are more innovative and an overall improvement from SpaceX's previous ones. It's kind of like a suit of armor made of fabric. SpaceX principal spacesuit engineer Eric Krause says in a new video the company posted to X. While based on the IVA suit, the EVA suit's soft portions become rigid when pressurized, requiring flexure and rotational joints for ease of movement. This aims to avoid making the suit become something like NASA's traditional suits, whose comfort is not the concern. Astronaut survival is. By contrast, for SpaceX, the comfort also plays a vital role. As Elon Musk shared,
because if you just inflate the suit, you're just basically, you're kind of like one of those balloons at a party or something, So it's quite hard to to still be mobile in an inflated suit, and have the joints move and stuff.
This difference largely stems from their intended purposes and the environments they are designed for. NASA's spacesuits, particularly the Extravehicular Mobility Unit, EMU, are designed primarily for short-duration spacewalks, extravehicular activities, or EVAs, in low Earth orbit, such as those conducted at the International Space Station. On the other hand, SpaceX's vision includes supporting missions that may involve longer durations on other planets, such as Mars. This requires a suit that can accommodate the physical demands of extended wear and various activities, making comfort a priority. There are many challenges in designing such types of suits, so testing the suit should be the focus of the entire privately funded 5-day mission. Moreover, maintaining the suit under suitable pressure, also aims to protect them from ironic situations. A typical example is the case of the Soviet cosmonaut Alexei Leonov, who was the first person to walk in space and spent 12 minutes outside his spacecraft on the 18th of March 1965. His mission showed some of the risks associated with designing spacesuits. By the end of the spacewalk, Leonov's suit had inflated in the vacuum of space to the point where he could no longer fit back in the airlock. He had to manually release air to get inside. Another feature of the SpaceX brand new suit is the additional Faraday layer, or a conductive cage, around the suit that shields it from external electric fields. SpaceX's Christ Trigg stated that one more issue is crew thermal comfort during EVAs. The suit will be exposed to an extreme thermal environment, and the suit's interior must be ensured to be comfortable and safe to touch. The helmet features a heads-up display with a transparent screen. This provides critical telemetry to the crew, including pressure, temperature, and relative humidity, without obstructing the astronaut's view. It also features coatings for astronaut safety. The EVA suit visor is made of polycarbonate and is coated with copper and ICO, or indium tinoxide, said Krauss. These two coatings together reflect the sun away from the crew, as well as reflecting infrared heat back to the crew when they are facing deep space. To create such a great type of spacesuit, SpaceX, as well as the Polaris team, has made efforts around the clock for 2 years. Mentioning the difficulties during those 2 years, Isakman shared that, "We started with what looked like an IVA suit. Every week you'd come in and you've got different materials on the left arm versus the right arm, different rotator on the left arm, different wrist mechanisms, and it was so much trial and error. Sarah and I have spent 100+ hours pressurizing the suits over the last couple of years, just going through the design iteration to ultimately arrive at where we are today, which is really decent dexterity in the fingers, very good mobility, good flexibility, even down to the knees, waist. We went to White Sands Missile Range probably a year and a half ago as they were firing 1mm aluminum balls at near-orbital velocity speeds to see what would happen if an MOD strike happened on a variety of materials, including the visors. So it's been an evolution, I'd say. Through those shares, we can understand how dedicated the group is to this work. Hard work paid off. SpaceX's EVA suit, although just in its first generation, can meet the mission's strict requirements and be the game changer for spaceflight. Here is one of the key reasons why, in this century, we cannot easily travel to the moon as NASA did in the last century. The first moon landing mission in 1969, Apollo 11, is simply related to 2 NASA astronauts, Commander Neil Armstrong and lunar module pilot Edwin Buzz Aldrin, and their 2¼ hours exploring the moon. As Armstrong said, "One small step for a man, one giant leap for mankind." The success of Apollo 11 is a premise for humans' larger ambitions in the 21st century. We are not only going to the moon, but also to Mars. We will no longer be carrying 2 people, but hundreds of people, all of whom may not be astronauts. We won't hang around the moon for hours, but instead build a permanent base there and then colonize Mars. All of them require a very large vehicle that could carry a huge amount of cargo and people over a very long distance. And SpaceX has built a mega rocket like Starship to meet all those requirements. The giant vehicle is capable of carrying around 100 to 150 tons of payload, or 100 people on long-duration flights to low Earth orbit. It's considered to be the most powerful rocket ever built, with the ability to produce around 74 meganewtons of thrust, which is almost 700 times more powerful than an Airbus, a 320 neo passenger plane. The thrust of Starship is almost double that of NASA's Space Launch System, the world's second most powerful rocket. It's also more than twice as powerful as the Saturn V rocket, which took humans to the moon. The rocket's upper stage, Starship, weighs up to approximately 100 tons when empty, which is nearly 20 times heavier than the Apollo 11 lunar lander. As evolution proceeds, it will likely become even heavier through upgrades. This explains why Starship cannot immediately travel to the moon in the manner of Apollo 11. Starship consumes nearly all its fuel reaching orbit. For longer missions like the moon or Mars, additional fuel will be needed to extend its range and ensure a safe return. Refueling will play a vital role at this point. Elon Musk emphasized, orbital refilling is an essential technology for making life multiplanetary. His tweet follows a tweet by the user Alex, which highlighted Flight 5's success and hinted at what's next for SpaceX. SpaceX demo of Starship's ship-to-ship propellant transfer next year will likely entail twin Starship launches and booster recoveries at Starbase. The Starship propellant transfer campaign will begin in March 2025. The ship-to-ship propellant transfer demo will be the first ship-to-ship docking and propellant transfer. The mission is planned to be completed over the summer of 2025 and will feature 2 Starship launches, which will place 2 ships in orbit where they will dock, and the tanker ship will transfer propellant to the other. This is essential to SpaceX's plan for the Human Landing System (HLS) version of Starship that will be used to land astronauts on the Moon, starting with the Artemis 3 mission, currently scheduled for no earlier than September 2026. Multiple Starship launches will transfer propellant into a depot in low Earth orbit that will then be used to fuel the HLS Starship, sending it to the Moon. Elon Musk described this system. "I mean, the fluid has to get from one ship to another somehow." SpaceX estimates that 1,200 tons of fuel, liquid oxygen, and methane must be used to complete a lunar landing, and not least to be able to leave the Moon again. 1,200 tons of fuel are equivalent to 14 refueling missions in orbit, according to a report submitted by SpaceX itself to the U.S. government. It also states that the refueling missions will be spaced approximately 12 days apart. However, Elon Musk has since stated that the 14 refueling missions are a conservative estimate. The refueling could be done in 8 missions, possibly 4 if Starship is only filled up to half, and if the flaps and the heat shield are dropped. The exact number of refueling launches has been the subject of controversy between NASA and SpaceX for a long time, with estimates going as high as nearly 20. To find an exact number, Amit Kshatriya, NASA Deputy Associate Administrator for the Moon to Mars program, suggested more work needs to be done to better understand the refueling process. He said the company is working to understand factors like boil-off of propellants and leakage, as well as how much propellant can be effectively transferred from a Starship. At present, SpaceX is on track to demonstrate in-space refueling of Starship next year. On the Starship's 3rd test flight on March 14th, SpaceX achieved one step towards refueling Starship with an in-flight propellant transfer demonstration under a NASA tipping point contract awarded in 2020. SpaceX planned to transfer at least 10 metric tons of liquid oxygen from a header tank to the main tank within the Starship upper stage while in space. The test appeared to go well, which was confirmed by NASA's official, Kshatriya. On Flight 3, they did an intertank transfer of cryogens, which was successful by all accounts, he said, adding that analysis of the test was ongoing. That analysis embraces understanding the slosh of propellants in the tanks as Starship maneuvers, as well as the amount of settling thrust needed once the vehicles are docked to ensure propellant flows between them. This is a premise for SpaceX to enter the next major milestone, an in-space propellant transfer test planned for 2025, and plans for that have passed a flight system review. The test will be followed by an uncrewed demonstration mission of the HLS Starship, including fueling the vehicle and sending it to the Moon for a landing. That mission will also feature an ascent demo not originally included in the plan, to prove Starship can lift off the lunar surface. Elon Musk, on April 26th, highlighted the priority of full and rapid reusability of booster and ship, as well as orbital refilling of the ship. Full and rapid reusability of booster and ship and orbital refilling of ship are the 2 fundamental technologies we aim to solve by the end of next year. Those are the critical pieces necessary to make life multiplanetary. In its pursuit of lunar exploration, SpaceX has set its sights on a monumental goal. "We actually want to far exceed what NASA has asked us to do," announced Elon Musk. His rocket company has made headlines with its bold plans to establish a base on the Moon, Moonbase Alpha. The Moonbase Alpha will use fleets of Starship HLS for permanent lunar operations. Moonbase Alpha alludes to the British science fiction series Space, 1999 from the 1970s. Nevertheless, the project's specifics, such as its schedule, have not yet been made public. There is a well-established and researched idea of utilizing the large volume and properties of empty fuel tanks to create robust space habitats. Although this is applicable to any sufficiently large rocket body, after surveying the current state-of-the-art launchers and what bodies can be delivered to the lunar surface. The most mature concept was using the SpaceX Starship human landing system as a structural basis for the lunar settlement. The concept is to decommission a Starship HLS and transform it into a permanent base while using its entire internal volume, including the fuel tanks, as a habitat. The reason why Starship HLS was chosen is its outstanding design and its low cost. The payload area of the Starship is about 1,000 cubic meters. This proposal would tip over the lunar Starship and cut it open to use 3 times as much volume and enable it to be buried for radiation shielding. The mass production capability of SpaceX's Starships on an assembly line forecasts considerably lower costs for these one-way lunar shuttles compared to alternative options for lunar infrastructure. The primary objective behind employing Starship as a cornerstone of lunar bases is to initiate surface operational capacity at an economically sustainable cost. For instance, if a Starship base can effectively support a crew of 20 individuals for 6 months between crew changes, the entire program could potentially operate below $150,000 per person per day. This stands in stark comparison to the cost of the ISS program, estimated at $10 million per person per day. Moreover, a low Earth orbit space station utilizing similar hardware would be significantly more cost-effective due to lower delta-V requirements. Moonbase Alpha would become a vital node for SpaceX's space operations, serving as a starting and arrival point for lunar missions. Musk's plans are obviously beyond the moon and focus more on the ultimate goal, the colonization of Mars. On October 13, 2024, SpaceX achieved a historic milestone in aerospace with the successful launch of its 5th Starship vehicle, marking a significant step toward full reusability in rocketry. During this mission, the Super Heavy booster was caught by the launch tower's mechanical arms, often referred to as chopsticks, upon its return to the launch pad at Starbase in Texas. This leads to another question. When will we see Mechazilla capture the ship? The answer could be 2025. However, getting there will be a very long journey, and Flight 6 will be a major milestone on that path. Elon Musk's company announced on November 6th that it's targeting November 18th for the next Starship test flight, which will lift off from SpaceX's Starbase site in South Texas. It means we are